Okay. We are Gross Catholic's engineering team. I'm Joe, I'm a junior.
I'm Andrew, I'm a senior.
I'm Molly, I'm a junior.
I'm Jacqueline, I'm a senior.
I'm Colin, I'm a senior.
I'm Grace, I'm a sophomore.
And I'm Daniel, I'm a senior.
Our project's title is Aiding the Aging. Now, we all know the marginalized groups in our society, the groups of people that need a voice and need to be heard somehow. Each year, large demonstrations are held to gather support for them and to make their stories heard. Our project seeks to tackle perhaps the most unheard and unrepresented group of all of these people. We wanted to address the elderly. A growing population of the elderly in America reside in nursing homes. However, the room design of these rooms are outdated and lack privacy. Additionally, the staff that provide care to these residents are infamously overworked and understaffed, a problem that is compounded by the lack of new technology that can improve their working environment. How do these issues actually affect the residents of nursing homes? Resident privacy, comfort, and above all, dignity are not the priority. Instead, efficiency is paramount, and this idea often manifests itself through a lack of quality of life for many residents. Similarly, in order to reduce costs, new technology that can drastically improve this quality of life is not invested in. These issues are made all the more pressing by the current increase in residents each year nationwide. This is projected to continue well into the future, and this means that we need to solve these problems today in order to make a better environment for the residents of tomorrow. Finally, while trying to solve this problem, the issue of regulations comes up. Nursing homes are among the most regulated buildings in the United States. And this quote from Dr. Natalie Manley, a doctor in geriatrics, sums it up pretty well. While designing our skilled nursing facility, we had to be aware of the hundreds and hundreds of regulations surrounding nearly every single aspect of a nursing home.
When we went into the solution, we wanted to keep a few key points in mind, and that was improving the room design, but also the facility overall, and including a lot of new technology, while also maintaining a lot of dignity for the residents and improving the quality of life for the staff so they can provide the optimal care for the resident. So this is our facility layout that we came up with. It has a lot of supporting areas, like a library and a spa, but also gives an open layout that gives a nice feeling of community for the residents. This also has a lot of ease of utility for the caregivers, so it is easy for them to give the care that they need. The feeling of community is amplified by the spacing between the rooms, so it doesn't feel like you're in a hospital and you're down a long corridor or anything like that. Zooming in on one singular room, we decided to split the room with the bathroom. And this allows for more privacy for each of the residents. So one resident would get on each side, and then there are additional diagonal walls that allow for even more privacy. This also allows for more customization between the two residents so they can have their own personal areas. And we added storage areas for personal items. And then this also gives very ease for the caregiver to give the care that they need. This is another room layout, and it has models in for scale. You see the chair by the window, but again, customization. You can have things wherever you'd like in your room. When we looked at our solution, we also looked into colors and how that can affect mental health. So we looked at a blue for the bathroom to give a nice feel of calming and clean environment, and then on the main area, we went with a tan, or it could be yellow for a more optimism and joy in that area. And for the flooring, we decided to go with a laminate flooring, so then it could give a feeling of home and familiarity for the residents.
Obviously, one of the major parts of our resident room is the bathroom. This bathroom is going to be shared between the two residents on each side, so it'll be one bathroom for each two residents. One of the main things we looked at for this bathroom was the smart home aspect of it. We really wanted to make sure we could include a smart mirror like the one shown that will have a digital alarm clock, maybe some simple to-do tasks, something to keep the resident on track but not to overwhelm them. We'll also have a smart toilet. Well, a smart toilet because we learned that some residents with memory impairments can see an open toilet and think a sink. So our toilet will be automatic closing, it will have heated seats and everything like that just to make it the best experience for a resident. We'll make sure there's storage for personal items, like you can see in this wooden shelf here. That's very important because we want to make sure the residents feel like this is their home and not just a place they're staying. So that's a place where they can put their own things without fear that they're going to get tampered with or stolen. And then we're going to have accessibility, and that can be through the regulations like grab bars in a very wide area, so there's more than enough room for a turning radius and caregivers around. And also our curbless entry shower. This is important for residents so they don't have to step over. It's good for those with mobility impairments or on wheelchairs. And we're going to have a trench drain, which is vital so the water doesn't escape into the bathroom, which would create a falling risk. And we want to make sure that the bathroom is as safe as possible while maintaining independency. So to talk about plumbing, we're going to have anti-scald valves on both our sink and our shower just to make sure that the residents don't get burned and stay safe. And then there's going to be a centralized water heater in the utility room in the basement. And that will be only for caregivers, and no residents will be down there unless it's an emergency. And this is a drawing we drew up to show where the water lines would go. Some of the supporting spaces we mentioned were these. These are the ones we found most important and that we really needed to touch on for our room. So first we have the nurses station, which you can see here in our diagram. In that place, we're going to make sure there's room for storage of files, linens, towels, anything like that, and also a good place for meeting with the caregivers so we can provide an individualized plan of care for each individual resident. We're going to make sure that's equipped with big screens so it can be easiest for the caregivers and make it efficient, and it's going to be equipped with our RFID technology that we'll touch on later. We're going to have the dining hall, which is here in our open layout area. And the dining hall is a great place for residents not only to eat their meals and to socialize. It's a great place, as stereotypical as it is, residents love bingo. So they're going to be able to play bingo there and socialize with their friends. And then in the lounge, which is here in our common area, it's a good place to, again, socialize, make friends. You can bring your visitors there, do puzzles, card games, things like that. And then in our courtyard, which is out here, it's a great place to go outside and be in touch with nature because that is great for your health, as you know. But it's going to be contained within the facility, so it's very safe. And we're going to make sure there's different levels of sunlight so you don't get shocked with your eyes when you go out from the inside lighting to the bright outside. There's going to be different levels, so it's varying, and there's going to be things to look at. It doesn't have to be anything special, but even just a busy street can add some interest into your day.
So HVAC is a really important aspect of any part of the building, and because it's provide our residents the comfort they need even in the hot summer or the cold winter. And variable refrigerant flow or VRF HVAC system is a type of system that can sense refrigerant to multiple indoor units from just one singular outdoor unit. And one more benefit of this VRF system is that it can bring heating from one room to another without the need to reheat or going outside. And the VRF that we specifically choose will give the nurses access to control the temperature even outside of the residence room. So as you can see on the picture on the top over there is what the nurses would see, and you can see each individual room with individual temperature where the nurses can control it. And then we will also provide air conditioning underneath the window for each patient to have easy access to it. And for the venting, we did some calculation in order to meet the requirements by the government. So we will place 7 vents in the room, 6 vents in the residence room, and 1 vent in the bathroom to meet the air changes per hour requirement. And then we also will place 3 ventry valves in each room in order to control the airflow to protect our residents from dangerous particles or airborne gases. So the radiant heat panels is also one more thing that we will install in the wall to help with the heating and for our patients. And why is radiant heat panels so much more effective compared to regular heat method? It is because they use infrared wave to transmit the heater from solid objects to heat up the solid objects directly, for example, our body, without the need to heat up the air in the room between, to make it so much more effective and also cost less. And for the lighting in the room, we decide to use LED lights for all the room, for even the overhead lights, the lamp, the lights in the closet, or even the lights in the bathroom, because it is more clean, more sustainable, and so much more cheaper. And also, we will have natural light going from the bay window and the overhead windows because natural lights are really important, especially for elderly residents because it improves their vitamin D level, their weight, and their circadian rhythm. And for acoustic, as you know, elderly people have magnified sounds, which they hear sounds louder than younger people. So in order to tackle with that problems, we decide to put more technology in the room. For example, we'll provide each patient a white noise machine so they can produce white noise to cancel out other noises outside. And then the door sill kits to soundproof outside noises and improve noise reduction. And then sound silencer panels on the walls to reduce echoings and absorb all the sounds.
So concerning the residents, it's important that we keep their comfort top priority. So having the rooms specialized to fit their individual needs is a must. And to ensure their dignity and independence, it's important that we implement activities of daily living, or ADLs. These are everyday occurrences: brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom. Many of the elderly struggle with these tasks, so implementing gadgets or machines to help them is very important. Technology is also a huge factor. New technology is great, but many of the elderly can't seem to learn and process it as well. So a simplified version is a must. For example, we could use voice technology. They could say, open the window to get some air in, or turn up the heat. It could also be implemented with our call light system. If they say, I need help, it could alert the nurses to help them.
We all have had experiences with elderly and with nursing homes, so that's our family and our friends. But I've had a bit of a different experience as a CNA, so I've been able to bring to a team a different viewpoint as being a caregiver and knowing exactly what goes into that job. So one of the major ADLs, or activities of daily living, we look for is hygiene and toileting. These things seem easy to us, we don't think about them, but they can be very difficult for our residents here. So some things that we're implementing are added accessibility, which are tools that you can use, such as the one seen on the right here. You have things that can reach farther, you have detachable shower heads, things like that, just to make their job easier. And we're gonna have a resident bathroom, which I mentioned earlier, and that would be for residents who have the mobility and independence to use it themselves or with little help from a caregiver. And those that don't have that ability will go to a separate bathing room where they can get more help to get what they need to be done. And all of this is just to make sure we can optimize both safety and independence while maintaining their dignity.
So another way that we can help the elderly is through a lift system. Since commonly elderly lose their mobility, a lift system is essential. Currently in nursing homes today, they have what's called the Hoyer lift, which is seen in the upper left. It's bulky and it's really difficult for the caregivers to manage. So instead we decided to use a ceiling track system. It takes up less space, is more comfortable for the residents, and is easier for the caregivers to use. We decided to use the Surehand ceiling track, and with that you can use many different slings depending upon how you're moving the patient, what you're moving them to do. Another really important aspect is the bed. Commonly overlooked, but there's many different parts to it. One piece that we looked at to improve it is with the Hercules patient repositioner. When you're sitting in bed all day, slowly gravity will push you down in bed into unsafe positions. So what it does is there's a motor at the top and a really long sheet, and it rolls the sheet up and brings the patient with it. It reduces stress on the caregiver, on their backs, along with reducing skin irritation on the residents. Another part that we looked at was the bed frame. So we decided to use the Stryker Percuity bed frame. It has many different sensors in it that can alert caregivers if there's an accident or if the resident is out of bed to make it so they can prevent incidences before they happen. For the mattress, we decided to use the Dream Air Convertible mattress. It has air pockets inside that can move air around to relieve pressure on susceptible parts of the body. For example, the shoulders, the head, or the pelvis. It reduces hospital injuries and is all around safer. Along with it, there'll be a waterproof mattress cover just in case something happens, that would be underneath the moving sheet.
We wanted to implement RFID in our nursing home, which is radio frequency identification. We chose to use RFID because it's inexpensive, but still provides the level of security that is necessary at nursing homes. Each card has its own secure processor and storage, with additional encryption keys to keep the information safe. And additionally, RFID can communicate wirelessly and does not require external power sources. So this is a working prototype of an RFID card and reader system we built. And we want to place it near the bathroom door so nurses can have ease of access to it. So for identification, nurses would scan their card on the resident's reader, and important information would be logged, such as the time they entered, who entered, how long they spent in the room, and who they attended to. But this system is very expandable, and other information could be logged, such as what tasks they did. And we wanted to integrate this with the current call light system to make it more efficient. For laundry, we wanted to include 2 baskets per resident, one for their personal items and one for the nursing home's linens, bedding, and towels. Residents would have the option to tag their important pieces of clothing with RFID to prevent loss and mishandling. And these 2 improvements would help with overall cleanliness, convenience, and efficiency. We wanted to have several telepresence robots in our nursing home. COVID-19 proved there are many challenges with face-to-face communication, and a telepresence robot can help solve some of those issues. It prioritizes the resident by enhancing the privacy that they have, and it also makes it seem like they're still talking to a real person. Staff will be able to remotely operate these robots, which helps relieve their burden and helps them with their safety. And the telepresence robot is better than current video conferencing because the robot has ability to freely move around the room and the facility.
So the action plan is how we plan on moving forward. Right now we have a single facility, but we plan on having a campus design so they can all work together. And in doing so, we can implement sustainable energy, whether it's solar panels, wind turbines, that can all power the whole campus. And also, since heating is a big problem for the elderly because a lot of them get cold very easily, we can implement geothermal heating, which could help heat the campus. So for determining the cost, we looked at other nursing homes around the area to find an average of square footage, which came around $250 per square foot. And that would mean our facility would be at least $3 million. And for the funding, we would implement real estate trusts, crowdfunding, and government loans on top of the resident payments. So we originally presented our idea to the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging, and they absolutely loved it. So a couple of days ago, we did a Zoom meeting with 7 different people representing different organizations, and they too were absolutely astonished. So they said they wanted to use our presentation for their own use, which was very exciting.
So how did we get here? We started off by asking ourselves what sort of groups needed our attention or had a problem that needed addressing. Andrew works at Hy-Vee, and he noticed how a lot of the elderly shoppers have issues getting things off of higher shelves and stuff like that. And so that turned into a broader conversation around the problems surrounding elderly in our community today. We started thinking about different things that we could do to help solve that issue. And that turned into focusing more on nursing homes. We began drawing up ideas for possible ways we could help solve this problem, and we came up with a room design that you can see here that's similar to what we have today. And we also used our tables and chairs as a way to kind of get a scale model for what we would actually be building. We narrowed it down into what the presentation and report that we have today. We also worked with many professionals in both the medical and engineering community to better our project. As you can see here, some of the people who are in this room today. Finally, we created a nursing home that puts resident dignity above everything else. We wanted to think about where a nursing home should go in the future, and with the small scale design and neighborly aspects, in addition to the new technology and keeping up to code and regulations, it creates an environment that is way above the industry standard today. Finally, we'd like to thank you all for being here and for listening to us, and especially the judges and volunteers who have made this event possible. We'd love to thank our amazing mentor and teachers, Steve Hammersky, and our mentors, Dan Peterson, and all the professionals that helped make this project what it is today. And now we'd love to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question. Thank you for a great presentation, and you guys did a great deal of research, and I thought that was fantastic. One thing I'm curious about is for the elderly, it's also important for them to get exercise, and my wife's a therapist for the elderly, so I know a little bit about it. So did you guys think about that, or is that a cost issue that you couldn't overcome, but as far as like having facilities for exercise?
Exercise is a big deal, so we definitely have systems of ambulation around, so they'd be able to walk around just the main area and then courtyards. And so that would be very beneficial with the lift system, so you could get them to the state where they can use canes, walkers, gait belts, things like that to help them move. We don't have a space designated for exercise right now, but that could definitely be added into our final facility eventually, but we don't have that at the moment.
Another thing is that one of the professionals we talked to really liked the idea of having a circular design around our facility so residents are able to move around more freely instead of running into dead ends and things like that.
So I have a question about, very good presentation, by the way, and very nice model. What kind of security measures? I noticed the nurses station is right by the entrance. Are there other security things did you think about as well, or?
Our facility is up to code, and there are certain measures like making sure that residents are not able to enter areas that could be dangerous to them. So we have locks on the kitchen, especially the stairs that lead to the basement for the HVAC needs. We just want to make sure that all of the areas that residents could harm themselves in are not accessible to them. For security from the outside of the facility, as far as we know, our current system where guests can check in at the nurses station is up to code and is adequate, but we'd also love to talk to more professionals and see if there's more that we need to do. But as far as we know, the security measures that we have right now are adequate.
Good. Great presentation. Thanks for putting this together. You mentioned this was kind of the first pod, so as this grows, if you got several more pods, is there some efficiencies that you could, as these pods kind of, instead of building everything, together, have you thought about the efficiencies? And then kind of a follow-up question, how did you come up with 12 residents? Was it a set? How'd that number come into play?
So when we were researching current room designs or nursing home facilities, most of them were huge facilities that almost had like spurs on a wheel that have long corridors with resident rooms on each side, and then they kind of meet in a central area. And we broke away from that, but we still kept the same amount of rooms in one sort of spur, because that's appears to be a good amount for one nurse's station and for all the other amenities that a pod needs. And so that's kind of why we stuck with that number. For increasing efficiency, like we spoke about, we'd love to include more efficient and sustainable energy in a wider facility design, because obviously for one singular pod, a lot of kind of renewable energy is not sustainable for that small of a scale, but scaling it up, we'd love to include more efficient energy sources like that. For transportation between them, we have some of our images, pathways and ways for residents to travel between them if they'd like to speak with friends in different facilities and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of our plans for scaling up the design.
Just to add specifically about the one individual pod, part of the reason we chose to do the 12 residents was because there's very strict guidelines about how far you can be from a nurse's station and from storage areas for clothing, linens, things like that. And so we found that from here to here is very close enough so the residents will be able to get the care they need quickly, and then we're not putting too much pressure on our nursing staff so they can get there in time and make sure we're providing the best care and the best workplace.
Excellent presentation. I appreciate the seamlessness of how you interacted with each other. Have you talked to any architects that design these things right now? I mean, that actually have projects underway where they sort of specialize in nursing homes?
We have not talked to architects that are working on nursing homes specifically. We have talked to people who have worked on projects similar to this in the past, like Joel Peterson, that kind of helped us with our HVAC and kind of engineering needs.
Mhm.
We'd love to get more talk to people who are more involved to get to hear about the kind of pitfalls and things to avoid when designing facility, in addition to the things that they would like to add if they were able to design a facility themselves. But we have not talked to architects in the field.
I like the fact that you presented it to Eastern Nebraska for aging. Yeah. Did they have any suggestions about how you should proceed or how you would overcome this cost issue? Because this is doubled space that typically would be allocated to a patient or a tenant.
Cost is a huge issue, obviously. These things are very, very expensive, and especially with all of the regulations and inspections and everything. However, we didn't get very many cost-specific advice from them. However, we would like to, our design is more kind of on the side of this is where we are trying to move towards, and this is our kind of ideal system of living for these people, and the cost that kind of comes with that, we would hope will be able to be subsidized by both Medicaid and other government projects, in addition to the sort of crowdfunding and trusts and things that could help provide funding for that.
I understand. Did they have any, they didn't dismiss it outright, thinking that it's too expensive to even consider?
No.
So that's a good thing. And they thought about that. Questions were talked about related to cost with those people, both in Maryland and in Nebraska.
Yeah, something that we talked about is our room is compatible with Medicaid, obviously, and that's where a lot of the residents get their funding for their rooms. And that's really important because sometimes late in life their savings have diminished in some Medicaid, so that's why we have 2 residents per room, because that's a requirement. And there are many little alterations in our facility that maybe Andrew could touch on more if we wanted to, that make it eligible for Medicaid and make it so they can pay for some of the costs as well as what they have in their savings.
That's a good thought.
This is my turn. I like the layout. There's lots of great ideas, and you saw how complex designing a facility is in the different areas. I'm going to turn over here because you spoke to HVAC and electrical. What was the biggest surprise or challenge that you saw when you were looking at those systems? What did you learn that was like, oh wow?
Probably like how complicated the HVAC system, because we also have like the tracks in the ceiling for the lifting system, and we have to place like the tracks somewhere that is not interfere with the HVAC, and then the venting, and then we have to calculate like for the blower, for the venting, how much air they need to blow to meet the requirement of the air changes per hours, and that's also one of the hard things.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you're going to have to throw in the code compliance with the fire-rated walls and the smoke dampers and everything else between the rooms. And so, all that stuff mixed up above the ceiling. There's a lot of complexity to that. So.
Judges, we just have about 1 minute left before we need to let them clean up and wait. Any last questions?
Just from knowing my great aunt is always cold. Any extra heat in the bathroom? Did you guys think about, when they're taking showers or you're getting bathed, how cold they really get, and then maybe, additional, I saw that there was 1 vent, I think, in there, but, maybe some kind of, extra heater for them during their bathing times. I thought that might be a good addition, just for thinking about that.
We'll definitely take that in consideration. Our toilet does have a heated seat on it, so that'll definitely help with it. But when taking things like a shower or a bath, we'll definitely take into account a space heater. Maybe we can implement that into the wall, or definitely be very cautious around water, things like that.
And our faucets have mixers that will keep them at a reasonable temperature, depending on a resident's preferences, but it will keep them warm enough, hopefully. But we would definitely like to implement something to keep them a little bit warmer while not in the water or on the toilet specifically.
Yeah.